Nobidala. Welcome to tonight's Dino Bidala show on SiriusXM channel 127, Friday, February 19th. A lot going on, my friends. Today, Joe Biden, though, gave an important speech, a speech that I think deserves far more attention. He said something very bluntly. He said in a Joe Biden way, I would say it more bluntly, but I'm a radio show host. He's president. So he's got to be a little bit more measured, and I get that, but he's moving in the right direction. Today, Joe Biden, in an address to the Munich Security Council conference, made it clear that Western democracies, including the United States, and he said the United States, that our democracy is under assault. And it was very interesting what he said. I'll read the exact lines here. He said bluntly that the United States is at an inflection point between those who believe autocracy, which is a strongman dictatorship, that is, should be the way as opposed to democracy. And then he added that we have to defend and strengthen our democracy. I couldn't agree with that more. And then he added a line which sounds like something you would expect to hear from a president, but I want you to take it in for a second. He said, I believe that every ounce of my being that democracy will and must prevail. Think about that. The president of the United States is saying in this battle, I believe with every fiber of my being that democracy will win over authoritarianism. But he understands there is a fight. And he understands we could lose that fight. America could become an authoritarian regime. It could become worse, a fascist regime using violence to acquire power. And while Joe Biden did not mention Donald Trump or the GOP by name, that's not what he does. That's what I would have done, but he doesn't do that. He's laying it out there for the world. And I hope for Americans to understand the crossroads we are at as a nation. Joe Biden made a point that democracies are fragile and that they don't on their own take care of themselves. They must be defended. They must be strengthened. And to me, I think what we saw on January 6th has to be a wake-up call for people that this is not a one-off. This is a symptom of something bubbling beneath the surface. There are countless Americans, we don't know how many, who are on board with using violence to keep someone like Donald Trump in power. Donald Trump himself brought them there to use violence to stop the steal. We all know that. There's no other reason to bring them there on January 6th. It was not lobbying day on Capitol Hill, folks. He brought them there to use violence to stop the steal. We get that. And I think it's time for members of Congress, Democrats, to speak out loudly and make it clear to all Americans the stakes. And one thing they can do is say they're not going to work with any Republican. They're not going to co-sponsor legislation. They're not going to have press conference with any Republican who either one, was involved in furthering the big lie, or two, refused to vote to hold Donald Trump accountable for inciting a terrorist attack on our Capitol. And AOC hinted at something just like that at the end of January involving Ted Cruz when he wasn't jetting off to Cancun to stay at the Ritz-Carlton, which is literally where he was going to stay while people in his state were freezing to death. He offered at the end of January to work with her on some kind of issue, and she stated point blank, I'm happy to work with Republicans on this issue where there's common ground, but you almost had me murdered 3 weeks ago, so you can sit this one out. She added, happy to work with almost any other GOPer that aren't trying to get me killed. I think that's a tactic that needs to be used by all Democrats. If not, they're normalizing fascism. The GOP is the party of fascism now. And I take no joy in saying that. I would not be saying that, in fact, if the GOP after January 6th did the right thing, if it in mass in one loud voice, or at least most of them, denounced Donald Trump, denounced his role in the attack, denounced his lie, we'd have a different conversation. But despite all this talk of a GOP civil war, the statistics and facts don't back that up. Out of 261 members of the House and Senate who are Republican, only 17 voted to hold Donald Trump accountable. And of those 17 who held him accountable, voted to hold him accountable, they are all getting a backlash from the rank and file GOP who loves Donald Trump. In fact, a new political poll shows Donald Trump's favorability among Republicans, are you ready for this? Has gone up since January 6th attack. And the day after the attack, his approval was around 74% among Republicans. Now, after the whole impeachment trial, he's up to 81%. Please do not tell me that they are not on board with violence to retain and acquire power. Please, let's not play any games. If you're not on board with fascism, if you're not on board with violence, they had an easy shot. They could have en masse denounced Trump. They could have voted to impeach him in large numbers, and you would see the GOP base saying something vastly different. They're not. Look, the GOP's been descending into authoritarianism for years. The voter suppression laws they're now introducing around the country are off the charts because they can't win with democracy. To the GOP, democracy is a speed bump to their dreams of power. And if they can't win with all the voter suppression efforts, they will use more violence. And I think it's so important that we don't allow January 6th to ever be seen as politics as normal. And the Democrats in Congress will be making it politics as normal if they don't come out, use the word fascism, or at least explain what fascism is and show the GOP is a budding fascist movement and why that's so damning and so frightening to our nation as a democracy, as a republic. And again, they have to define fascism, and they have to not be timid in discussing it, because if they don't define it, it will not be a significant warning. To be an effective warning, people, because most people really don't know what fascism is, the term, just like socialism, most people don't know the details of it. Let's be blunt. Define what it is. It's the use of violence to acquire and retain power. There are other factors involved with fascism, numerous checklists, but at its essence, it is using violence to acquire or retain power. The January 6th terrorist attack was done for one reason, for Donald Trump to retain power that he lost by way of an election. That is fascism there. That's what it looks like, my friends. And we also need Democrats to say in one voice, we're not going to work with any Republican in any way who didn't do the right thing on holding Donald Trump accountable. I also think they should call on big donors, corporations, to say, if you give money to any Republican super PAC, you are saying you are fine with political violence. You are fine with fascism. And again, numerous corporations already announced they're not giving any money to Republicans who voted to not certify Joe Biden's win. Let's keep on this. Look, this is not partisan. This is not left nor right. It's not Democrat nor Republican. It's not liberal nor conservative. It's fascism. It's the difference between our republic, which is marked by a robust democracy, or a strongman dictatorship led by Donald Trump, or down the road, some other Republican they find that'll do this very thing. And Democrats need to step up. They can't normalize the GOP's fascism. Please, Democrats, don't do that. We'll talk about this more on my show tonight. A great lineup. Congressman Yvette Clark's going to join us. Heather McGhee's going to join us. Maysoon Zayed, Carolina Hidalgo. Join us. We're live 6 to 9 p.m., channel 127 on SiriusXM. Again, if you don't subscribe to SiriusXM, go to the website. There's free trials. Click on the free trial. Join us. Join our family. We got so much work to do, folks. We're going to make this country special. Let's do it together. If you want progress, stay active. Thanks for tuning into the preview.